And now the 419 with Gretchen DeBacker, Matt Killam, and Kevin Mullen. Oh.
Welcome into the 419, powered by WGTE and presented by Wheatro Wealth Management. I'm Kevin Mullen.
Gretchen DeBacker.
Matt Killam.
It's Mayor Monday.
Mayor Monday.
And we are in Ottawa Hills, literally in Ottawa Hills at the junior high and high school. We are inside the Foundry.
Yeah.
Beautiful place.
It is a much more sophisticated and lovely breakfast club feel here. I feel like we are.
Are you going to do the dance?
Yeah, that's how I came into the building.
Yeah.
As I do most days. And you're here because you had no other place to go.
No other place to go.
We're going to be talking with the mayor of Ottawa Hills, Marc Thompson. We'll also have the principal of the school here, Ben McMurray, will join us and tell us a little bit more about this space that we are in. But it is incredible.
Yeah.
And I think, this is, my brother lives here in Ottawa Hills.
Yeah.
His kids go to school here.
Yeah, mine too.
Yeah,
thanks, Kevin.
But they don't go to this building.
They'll never be allowed in this building,
No.
I presume. Yeah, at least one
They'll
of them.
burn it to the ground before they let them.
That's right. Yeah.
But it's an incredible community. I know
Yes.
they love being here.
Same.
And so I'm excited for a chance to get to. I've had some conversations with the mayor over the years, just at community events. He will not remember me at all.
Yeah, sure. Wish I could
We
say
don't.
the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course Ben McMurray is a friend,
Yeah.
and an incredible leader, and
Yeah.
so I'm excited to hear his perspective on the schools and innovation and some of the challenges that face a principal in 2026.
And what's he doing with his summer? That's what I want to know. Does he even get one?
Probably not.
Probably not.
He's mailed it in for years.
Yes.
So,
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So it's going to be an exciting show.
Yep.
I love that we've got a different change of locale.
This is our last Mayor Monday, I would think, too.
This is our final Mayor Monday
about
as
it?
we enter our final week.
A lot of pressure on Mayor Thompson.
That's right. He better not screw this up.
That's right.
And then we'll take a break for the summer. We'll be back, God willing, and the creek don't rise.
Oh, good.
For season 2 later this fall. I'm going to keep saying it.
Yeah,
You
love it.
can. It still doesn't make any sense.
I love it. Yeah.
How does it? I mean, if the
Of
creek
all the-
rises, wipes us all out,
Yeah.
we're not going to be
It
here.
would be better if you said crick.
Yeah, I like crick better.
Okay, God willing, and the creek don't rise.
Love it.
Sure, we'll be back for season 2.
Goes to my boots.
This is, inevitably, this is one of my favorite days,
Yeah.
Mayor Monday, and a chance to see the village of Ottawa Hills through the eyes of, and today, not just one, but 2 people that absolutely love this community.
Sure, I know we've beaten this to death, but it is, I'm stopped with absolutely almost a daily occurrence where someone makes mention of the last Mayor Monday and enjoying it and learning more about it. We had the Bowling Green Mayor, if I have the chronology of this right, recently, and it became part of a text thread and people are chatting about it. So people like the idea of who is involved in these communities, and there'll be no difference here, I'm sure, today. These are people who spent decades here and the families are embedded in the tapestry.
And we're going to release a list of and rank the mayors at the end of the season.
Gretchen's going to do that. I'm
Yeah,
not going to do
so
it. We're going to take
we'll
a
be
break.
putting
We'll be
that
right
out.
back with Mayor Thompson here on the 419 on a Mayor Monday. Support for the 419 comes from Wheatro Wealth Management, where we understand that your financial path is personal. Advisory services are offered through Capital Investment Advisory Services, LLC. Securities offered through Capital Investment Group, Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. More information at wheatroadvisors.com.
The 419, powered by WGTE, is made possible in part by supporters like you. Thank you.
Welcome back into the 419, powered by WGTE. We are here at Ottawa Hills High School, junior high and high school, in the Foundry. Joined now by the mayor of Ottawa Hills, Marc Thompson. Mayor, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Welcome.
Let's start by defining Ottawa Hills. So what are the geographic boundaries? Tell us about the demographics of the Ottawa Hills community.
Ottawa Hills is almost exactly 2 square miles, pretty small.
What's your favorite square mile?
This northeast.
That's my favorite, especially in the fall.
Yeah. Bounded by Secor Road on the east and Central Avenue on the north. That's I guess the 2 easy ones. The Norfolk and Southern Railroad tracks, kind of a boundary along the south side. Virtually surrounded by the city of Toledo with a little bit of contact with Sylvania Township.
How many people live in?
4,700 people roughly.
Okay.
So we're a village. If you're under 5,000 people in Ohio, then you're a village. So that's why it's the village of Ottawa Hills.
Okay.
And what's the history as to why this village exists in the middle of the city of Toledo? Sort of in the middle.
Well, I wasn't here when it started,
Okay,
so
good.
I can only tell you my understanding. But in many respects, it started with a couple of well-known people in the Toledo history as an opportunity for expansion, home expansion. E.H. Close and John North Willies and some other folks, Willies from the Jeep fame, of course, started a real estate development company, as I understand it. As I said, I wasn't here then.
Sure. So I guess the question we ask, most commonly on our Mayor Mondays is, why have you done this to yourselves? Right? I mean, of all of the things that you could do with your time, of all the ways that you could serve your community.
Well, I asked that question myself.
You asked it this morning, right?
sure.
Including this morning.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Especially this morning.
And my wife asked me
Yes,
that
I'm
question
sure.
this morning as well. I worked for the village for 28 years as the village manager here. And my family and I moved here in 1991, and the community has been wonderful to my family and to me. And
Moved from where, Mr. Thompson?
I was the city manager in a Dayton suburb.
Okay.
And before that, city manager a couple other places in Ohio. Anyway, we moved here in 91. In that period of time, it's been a great place for us to live. The community was very welcoming. So the mayor position is an opportunity, in my estimation, at least to try to, I don't want to say give back, that sounds kind of trite. I think maybe I have something to offer, and certainly it's been a wonderful place for my family and me.
There's so many different types of government organizations, township, city, obviously, village. Some have full-time mayors, some don't. What's the relationship or the difference between a city manager and a mayor?
Well, the city manager is an appointed position, first of all. Typically, someone who has some training or experience in municipal government. The mayor is an elected position. Could be someone who also has a lot of training and experience in municipal government, but that's not a necessity. Municipal government is complex, and now that I'm the mayor, I see it differently than when I was in the manager's position. But my point is, this is a complex operation.
Absolutely.
And people with training and experience might be valuable as opposed to someone who is elected by virtue of having.
And you have to have a pretty good relationship, I'm assuming, with the city of Toledo and certainly with Sylvania Township, but because many of the services that are provided to the village by the city of Toledo Water, certainly, and police and fire. I mean, not police, but fire. Is that right? And so, what are the other shared services?
Well, water is interesting. The water that we drink here in the foundry comes from the City of Toledo water treatment plant, and a network of pipes that here, strangely enough, are operated by the City of Toledo and by Lucas County. So it's kind of a mix.
Yep.
Whenever you've got three governments working together, it's the best of scenarios, right?
We're hoping to get a fourth involved. somewhere.
Absolutely.
See what you can do.
Yeah, I've worked for the government, and I've always found it to be true. Whenever we can round robin,
much more efficient
It's
that way.
so efficient. Yeah.
And what about fire? Rescue?
Fire and rescue, we contract, the Village of Ottawa Hills contracts with the City of Toledo for that service. Probably for the last, 15 years or so. There was a time when we provided it ourselves, and long term it just made sense for a host of reasons to contract the service as opposed to providing it ourselves.
But the other services that the village provides, that again cities provide, safety,
Sure.
security, cleanliness, water, right? Everything else is done by, I'm assuming, village employees. You have your own police force, you have your own trash pickup, that kind of thing.
That's correct, and And while we're on that subject, I guess a couple of things I'd like to say. Number
Sure.
one is that we're very proud of the people who work for the Village of Ottawa
Absolutely.
Hills. We try to have high standards in terms of professionalism, and I think we get there. Our relationship with the community, I think, is pretty strong, particularly with the police department and our service department, who plow streets, but what they do twice a week is they come to every house.
Yes.
And pick up refuse and recycling. I guess from my standpoint, the other noteworthy point is that we have about half as many people working for the village now as we did, say, 25 years ago. In part because we have contracted some services with the City of Toledo, which you mentioned earlier, and we've done more of that, not just the fire department, but other things as well. And we've automated some of our systems, so
Sure.
we're a little less people intense and more capital intense.
Yeah, I'm always curious, Mayor Thompson, your path to administration. When you were a young man, you were always interested in how things work. You're interested in civics. You're an engineer. How your folks were administrative leaders or teachers, or how is this sort of wired into your DNA, if you don't mind me articulating in that way?
Well, actually, you touched on it to a certain extent. My father was in the community that we lived in the northeastern part of the state. My father was in the water and sewer business for that community. In another community, his father was in the water and sewer business in northeastern Ohio as well. So that might be part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
And I'd like to tell you that I was a great student and loved government and civics classes. None of that's true.
Sure.
I was a poor student,
Yeah.
but maybe that it probably came from my father and grandfather, kind of hanging around this sort of work.
When there is an ease indiscriminate of what your vocation or occupation is to complacency, right? If it ain't broke to some degree, don't even look at it. What does benchmarking look like? How do you stay ahead and make sure, I guess, that you're not just checking boxes?
Well, to your point about complacency, that is I don't want to, maybe it's a disease that maybe we all have, but governments
this show used to be great. Yeah, now we're just mailing it in. I can tell you.
So your comment about complacency is important, and I've tried to make sure that we don't get complacent because it's easy.
Sure, absolutely.
So, frankly, that's one of the reasons why we have half the people working for the village that we used to have.
That was my thought.
And using the using the fire department as an example, that was a big change and was, frankly, controversial in the community.
Sure.
And at least from my perspective, the real question is, why didn't you do it sooner? Not why did you do it?
Sure.
Why didn't you do it 10 years before?
Yeah, this is a math exercise, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
I had an experience a couple of years ago. I think folks that follow our show know I live, across the street from Ottawa Hills, and I'm driving down Secor Road. I don't know if I was heading to University of Toledo or where I was going, but I saw a bicycle up against the side of the road, off the side of the road, and what appeared to be from a distance a young person sitting there. So naturally in my head, I'm like, oh, I wonder if somebody needs help. As I get closer, I realize it's my niece who's sitting there in a folding chair at the corner of Secor and something with a notepad. And so I, pull into a side street, go out to talk to her to say, what in the world are you doing?
Right. Sure.
And she was tracking demographics of drivers. Do you know why she was doing this?
Yeah, we started that program years and years ago, and frankly, it comes from a perception. And I've been here since 1991, so that's a long time ago. We started probably doing that in 1995 or 96 or somewhere in there. We were aware of the perception certainly then, that this was a predominantly white, affluent community. It wasn't particularly welcoming to minorities. That whole effort was part of an effort to make sure that our police department was not racially profiling. We started, even before then, keeping track of every car we stopped. We kept track of it, not just, hey, slow down and be on your way. We had a written warning system to make sure we knew who we were stopping. And then what you're describing was sort of the next generation of that, and that was, well, if in order for us to be able to evaluate who we're stopping, we have to have some idea who's driving through our community. Mm-hmm. So the next generation of that process was to say, well, let's figure out who's driving through the community, get some statistical analysis of who's driving through the community. How do you do that? Well, the way we chose to do it is we had people sitting at busy intersections, busy places, and just keeping track of who's driving by. So that's what your niece was doing. And then we would take that information, compare it to who we were stopping.
Speaking of driving, let's talk about the dreaded Secor Road, which has had so many concepts of a plan, I'd say. It's half shared, if I'm not mistaken, by Ottawa Hills and by the city of Toledo, really down the middle of Secor. I think that's correct. There's been conversations about traffic circles, about expanding it, about the property. What's the current status of planning about the improvement on Secor Road, if you know?
Well, I don't know. I'll tell you what I know,
okay.
but the current plan, the current discussions are from Kenwood north to Central. Mm. Both sides of the street in that section are in the city of Toledo.
Got it.
But you're also correct. The portion that's adjacent to the village of Ottawa Hills goes to the center line. The other half of the street is in the city of Toledo. And to tell you that there are active plans to do anything with that right now would be inaccurate. Mm-hmm. My understanding about the area north of Kenwood, or from Kenwood north to Central, is that those plans are in a state of flux, but that's really better addressed by the folks at the city.
I've heard so many conversations around this, and I've got friends in government and friends that are advocates for safe driving and all that. That the reality is Secor's a nightmare when I'm doing 60.
Yeah.
It's not that bad when I'm doing 25.
No.
Right, and so I think there's a balance there, and
That's
I think
on your bike.
That's right. I mean, I am a phenomenal cyclist. We're talking with Mayor Thompson here at Ottawa Hills. Whether it's checking demographics of drivers or doing any of these things, I mean, data is so important to the decisions that any leader makes. How do you keep track of all of that? How do you decide what data is worth collecting, what data isn't worth collecting?
Well, the driver counts were important for a host of reasons, but primarily, as a local government, we are in the safety business, but we're also in the law enforcement and treating people fairly business, and we wanted to make sure that we were treating people fairly, and we were aware of the perceptions that existed about the community. We wanted to address those. Beyond that, more generally, our community, frankly, is pretty small, and it's pretty simple here. So the statistics that are driving decisions in the city of Toledo, they've got a lot more information. They got a lot more going on than we do. But I would say we have some advantages in the sense of being small, and we have a pretty good feel for our community. And Mr. McMurray would say, as I would, that if you're walking down the street here, you're likely to know, the person walking down, you'd like to say, known by name and that sort of thing. So I'm getting away from your statistical questions.
Actually, I don't think so. I think that's a perfect way to answer it. The upside, there's upsides and downsides to both, but you can be inundated with data, and you certainly should acquire it to make important fiscal decisions. But there's something to be said for the data that you're receiving from your neighbors, from your constituents. So I think that's a perfect way to answer that question.
Well, much of our, a lot of our numerical analysis dollars and cents sort of thing, and we're pretty. I think we're pretty good at that.
Absolutely.
We've had good financial management for years in the village, so we're on top of that from a dollars and cents standpoint.
All right, we're going to take a break. We're talking with Marc Thompson, the mayor here of Ottawa Hills. When we come back, I want to talk more about that revenue side, because Ottawa Hills is unique in how they generate revenue and how they don't. We'll talk more about that on the other side of the break here on the 419, powered by WGTE.
To me, community means connecting to others.
I'm Donnie Miller, and welcome to The Point.
I love PBS Kids!
We're a community committed to education. Discover new ideas, dive into exciting subjects, and engage with the world around you.
I would send them personally a t-shirt. Crime doesn't pay in the old West End, pass it on. That's how we cleaned up the neighborhood.
Vision loss for people is not the end.
It's a story, it's the next chapter.
WGTE Public Media invites you to Get Out and Play Day.
The 419 at 7 a.m. on YouTube, 3 p.m. on FM 91, and 6 p.m. on WGTE Connects. It's the 419, powered by WGTE.
WGTE, where you come to watch, listen, and learn.
Welcome back into the 419, powered by WGTE. It's Mayor Monday, and we are in Ottawa Hills, literally at the junior high and high school inside the Foundry, talking with Ottawa Hills Mayor Marc Thompson.
Mayor Thompson, I'm always curious. We've had almost every mayor in the region, and this might be an unfair question, but if you had to pick one, personal or professional characteristic that is the most important for a mayor to have, what would that be?
Well, I guess I would say you have to care about the community.
Sure.
There's a sort of foundational aspect to it. If you don't care, and I would presume most mayors do, from my perspective, there's a responsibility about being mayor, and what that means is, in some respects, you have to put that professional responsibility ahead of your personal responsibilities. Sure. Whether that be a mayor or other elected officials.
You've been mayor for about 2.5 years. How was the transition after being a longtime city manager and then running for mayor, and how did you enjoy campaigning?
And how drunk are you with power?
Well, you'd have to ask other people. That's a perception issue. I would say, in terms of being drunk with power, probably not. I would hope not. Sure. In answer to your question about campaigning, I ran unopposed, so I didn't have to campaign. Good. I can tell you that I didn't spend a dime for campaigning.
Best way.
And I would also say to you, though, while that was beneficial for me personally, I don't think it's good for the community.
That's well said.
In fact, I have said repeatedly that there needs to be some competition for these races. So
you want to beat somebody.
I want whoever's running for mayor to be challenged by someone else
and held accountable.
What was I mean, I know you didn't campaign, but certainly you probably still had campaign message as you're seeing people at the store, out walking your dog. Okay. Yeah. I mean, but like what was the vision and the things that when you went
taller than the last guy.
Yeah. When you went from village administrator to mayor, inevitably there's a reason why you wanted to make that move.
Well, I had retired and been retired for 3 or 4 years.
So your wife wanted you to get out of the house.
Well, that was part of it.
Yes.
I think she did encourage this. I would say that.
Let me ask what that conversation was. Just that transactional? I mean, you had been retired for 3 years, 4 years, and what was that? If you don't mind me asking, a relatively personal question. Was it around the kitchen table, or this opportunity came up? You wanted to make a change. What was that conversation like?
There were conversations, first of all, with Kevin Gilmore, who was the former mayor, who wasn't going to run again, and he and I spoke about whether I would be interested in doing that or not. And frankly, as I said earlier, this community has been very good to my family and me, and if I could continue to contribute, I wanted to do that. So that was the nature of the discussion.
What's the day-to-day schedule look like for the mayor of Ottawa Hills?
Well, this is a part-time job, first of all. I'm glad you asked that question, because I think a lot of folks believe that, you know, the mayor has got an office at the village municipal building and is there all the time. That's not the case. That's the purpose of the village manager / administrator, and that's that's where the day-to-day decisions are made, and April McDonald is the person who does that and does it very well for us now.
Absolutely.
So if you were to go over to the village officer, have a question, you're likely to be talking to April, not to me.
You know, almost every mayor we've had on has talked about, you know, two primary things in terms of needs in the community and priorities, and that is, you know, a need for more affordable housing and a need for economic development growth, recruiting businesses to come into their community. I imagine there's different conversations happening in Ottawa Hills.
Yes, there are, although you know, the economic development question that you're talking about in other communities is often related to a financial question that the economic development generates a solid tax base. But in our community, and I often relate it to housing in our community, it's a beautiful community, full of beautiful homes. Those homes are old and they are in need of maintenance, and that's expensive. You could sort of take that same analogy and apply it to the community.
Absolutely.
Beautiful community. A project is going to start in a couple weeks on Edgevale Road, and I only point that out as an example because part of that project is going to replace a water line that belongs to Lucas County that has the Toledo water in it. That water line is over 100 years old. Wow. And frankly, when it was put in over 100 years ago, wasn't big enough then, if you follow me. So, like our homes, the plumbing in those old homes is old and it's undersized. So that's a challenge, and that relates to the economics as we go to the future, so paying for that.
Yeah, I mean, so I think that's, I mean, we look at all these other small communities and many of them pay for things because they've got large industry that moves in and develops a vacant lot into a manufacturing facility that employs hundreds of people.
Yeah.
That's right. That's not going to happen here in Ottawa Hills. So how do you generate new revenue in Ottawa Hills?
Your point is a good one. Frankly, we are looking at, and this is in the future, but we're looking at the site where the municipal building is, and that's kind of the largest assembled piece of property, and we're looking at whether or not we can reshape our organization and our location and have that for development. But many communities expand their tax base by growing geographically. Well, we're not going to do that.
Right.
So if we're going to expand the tax base, then it's going to be a density issue. The amount of ground we have isn't going to change. Perhaps we can use it in a more dense fashion.
Right.
But as we look forward, we need to find additional sources of revenue.
We're here talking with the mayor of Ottawa Hills, Marc Thompson, here at the junior high and high school, inside the Foundry, this beautiful facility. As we walk around and tour this facility, we see a number of names that we recognize as community leaders that have contributed to making this happen. I noticed that there is a space sort of just behind us that has the Thompson name on it. Tell me about Tyler, and this is a space that's dedicated to your son.
My wife and I have 2 children. Tyler was our oldest son, and we have a daughter, Tess. Tyler, and both Tyler and Tess went to school here and benefited from the outstanding education. I would say that they would both say to you that getting through high school here was more challenging than getting through college. They were very well prepared, and I suspect most of the students who leave here reached that conclusion. Back to our son Tyler, he died in 2021. He had a cerebral hemorrhage and was actually doing the same kind of work that I did. He was the village administrator in Georgetown, Ohio at that time. So we were both had effectively the same job. So we were talking about earlier about 3 generations, actually there are 4 generations.
Right.
At any rate, whenever I talk about our son and his death, I always try to conclude by saying that he was an organ donor, and the nature of his death was such that his organs were harvested. It sounds like such a terrible term, but heart and lungs, kidney, and all kinds of things. So our loss, there was some positive in there in terms of a host of people who have benefited from his life and, frankly, in his death.
Well, thank you for sharing. As a family recipient of an organ donation, my father is celebrating, I think it's 8 years this summer, with a heart transplant. That's a challenging decision, but I appreciate you sharing that and sharing that perspective, and thank you for that gift.
That was a decision that he made, and it kind of consistent with who he was. So.
It's a beautiful memory, and obviously it will live on for generations that pass through the hallways here. It is an awkward, but I think it's a timely segue to talk about the future, which Tyler's memory, of course, is in pathing. I guess I have a clinical question to ask in terms of some specifics, but I'm also curious about where and how you think about the future of your beloved village, right? Which housed your family and still does. Is this something that you think about in a whiteboard at your house? You've got a journal by the bed, in the shower when you drive. I mean, you love it and you want to move it, and we talked a little bit about being stagnant, and that is the antithesis of what you want. I think they talk about being indifferent is worse than loathing, right? And I believe that to be true. How do you vision the future here? Is it in a journal? Do you bounce it off your wife? And she says, "I don't care. I just want you to leave and go to someplace to work."
Well, she doesn't say that to me directly.
Yeah. She writes it on the whiteboard.
Yeah. Well, we've got a strong team of elected officials, and there are 2 or 3 things that make this community, I think, extraordinary. And we want to keep those things. I like to say that over the time, the changes that should have occurred in the community are changing, the demographics being one, and I spoke earlier about a perception of this being a kind of an affluent white community. Well, and I had the opportunity a couple of months ago to come to a school assembly here in this building, and if you look at the students, it is that demographic has changed dramatically. So my point is that some of the things that should have changed, I think, are changing. And some things that we would like to keep the same, I think we're doing a pretty good job there. One of them is the school, and obviously that's a critical part of this community. It continues to be a strong school. You can look at any measure.
Yes, sir.
So it's one of the reasons why the village and school try to work so well together. We recognize how important that is to the community. And the other thing is this has got to continue to be a place where people want to live.
Right.
Because if you don't want to live here, there's not a whole lot else going on.
That's right.
It's not like there's a large factory or anything like that. So this has got to be a place where people want to live, and it's an expensive place to live. And so not only do people have to want to live here, they have to be willing to pay for those services. Our job is to try to keep those costs down and to deliver efficient service. That gets back to some of the things we've talked about earlier. The good thing is that we can find that people who move away often move back families who've moved away. Someone gets transferred away when they move back to the area because they're working for a corporation. They want to come back here. We have lots of young people who've moved away, and when it's time to start a family or what have you, say, well, you know what?
Come back.
You know where I want to have my family is here. So those things, but we've got to keep that. It's got to. Our job is, whether that be the school or the village, we've got to keep this a place where people want to live.
We're talking with Marc Thompson, the mayor of Ottawa Hills. All right, buckle up. We're going to put you on the hot seat. It's now time for Gretchen's Wacky Quiz.
There you go.
You know what? As awkward as it feels, I don't know.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you 4 rapid-fire questions. Gretchen's going to ask you to describe Ottawa Hills in 1 word, and then Matt will work with you to list the 9 best things in and around the village. All right, that's the 419. Here we go. Question number 1. What's the best vacation you've ever taken?
Biking in Italy.
Oh, wow.
What's the last book you read?
Well, I am reading a biography of Winston Churchill right now.
All right. What's a food that you absolutely cannot stand?
I eat anything.
All right.
So did Churchill.
He's apparently never met Brussels sprouts.
Yeah.
All right. You become a superhero. You've got a superpower. What's the superpower that you would love to have?
Predicting the future.
I like that.
I don't.
Yeah. What's the 1 word you would use to describe the village of Ottawa Hills?
Friendly.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to do the 9
This
favorites.
is the hard part.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, well, just dealing with me makes it even more worse. But I can help you with it. 9 things that you love about Ottawa Hills, or really the region.
9 things.
9 things. We'll do it together.
Ottawa Hills is a great location in the region.
Absolutely. The school system here is certainly on.
You doing a 9 or
No,
I'm going
he's
a 9?
supposed to do it.
You're right. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's right. I can feel that. This is amazingly powerful. Yeah.
School system, though I'll give you
He's got
credit
it.
for the school system.
sure.
It's certainly a wonderful aspect of the community. The idea that people have pride in this community.
Yes.
Yep.
I have lived and worked in places where people didn't tell
Yes,
you where
sir.
they're from. People are proud to live here. People are invested in this community.
That's the truth.
Mr. McMurray would tell you that there are parents in this building all the time.
Yes. And that's a positive.
That's a positive.
Yes, sir.
I think it's a positive.
Yes.
I don't know what he thinks
Who
about
cares
it.
what you think? Yeah.
Where are we? We're at 5?
7.
Yep.
Oh.
The
She
Toledo.
didn't go to Ottawa Hills. Yeah, she's not strong. You get past 5, and Gretchen is really in a
She's
bad
gonna take
way.
her shoes off.
Yeah, that's right.
Regionally, a lot of good things happening
Yeah.
here, and it's a good location for that.
Yes, sir.
I think many people don't, and I didn't realize until we moved here,
Yeah.
what Toledo has to offer. So that's a positive. Back to the community, there is support in the community for the community recognizes what it takes to keep the community functioning. They're willing to support the school system in the village. I like the people I work with, the people
Yeah.
who, frankly, the people who do the work
Yeah.
in Ottawa Hills, the people who provide the service to in me.
Sure.
I'm not out collecting the trash. We've got good people
Yeah,
doing that.
great
Police
people.
department.
That's right.
How many more?
You got 1 left. Have you been doing like maybe in a local park system at all, or go to? Yeah, just feel free to ever go out in any green space
Or
in
you
the
know,
area.
maybe a spouse or something like that.
Yeah,
It might
just-
be your favorite thing in Ottawa Hills.
Well, my spouse was my favorite thing, regardless of Ottawa Hills.
take it.
If
Yeah,
we went somewhere
regardless of
else,
Ottawa
it
Hills.
wouldn't be not Ottawa Hills related.
That's fair.
We
take it.
did other places.
Mayor Marc
you so
Thompson
much
from
for being
Ottawa
here.
Hills, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll be joined by the principal here at Ottawa Hills, Ben McMurray. It's the 419, powered by WGTE. Support for the 419 comes from Witro Wealth Management, where we understand that your financial path is personal. Advisory services are offered through Capital Investment Advisory Services, LLC. Securities offered through Capital Investment Group, Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. More information at WitroAdvisors.com.
Destination Toledo. Whether you're a local or a visitor, Destination Toledo invites you to explore the region and be a tourist in Toledo. Find events, dining, and things to do at visittoledo.org.
WorkSpring. HR issues and employee well-being go hand in hand. WorkSpring supports employers through compliance, training, and wellness because healthy workplaces don't happen by accidents. Learn more at workspring.org.
Toledo Refining Company, a subsidiary of PDF Energy. Toledo Refining Company is a supplier of fuels that keep our region moving. Located in Oregon, Ohio, the refinery processes crude oil into gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, and other petroleum products.
And TARTA, celebrating its 55th year of connecting Northwest Ohioans to their community. More information at tarta.com. Welcome back to the 419, powered by WGTE. We are out at Ottawa Hills High School in the Foundry, this beautiful, creative, incredible space. We're joined now by the principal, Ben McMurray. Ben, thank you so much for joining us.
Truly our pleasure.
What, I guess, you know, as the first person officially qualified to tell us what this space is, what is the Foundry?
Foundry is a space meant and designed for like student collaboration, but also a place where students can get support. So we tried to, we have always had lots of support for students of all ability levels, but we wanted to create a space where students wanted to come, and we made, you know, and destigmatize student support, make it a place where kids could come and get help and make learning how to read exactly like getting tutoring for, you know, an AP Calc class. And you know, the school is an old school, added on many times. It really had no sort of center of the building where students could hang out. Before it was all these kind of fragmented hallways, but this has become kind of a hangout place as well.
What kinds of supports are offered for students in this space?
We have math intervention, reading intervention, peer tutoring for all subject areas, just about everything. If a student would need some help, this is a place they could go. Our counselors come down and meet with them to do scheduling or career and college counseling. Again, it's a space where whatever they need, they can get.
I'll tell you, engineering a space that is supposed to, by design, feel not over-engineered isn't easy.
No.
Right? Having a place that's within an institution that feels not institutionalized isn't easy. We are friends. I am proud to say that I have a lot of buddies who have children that are students in high school. They've really embraced this. Talk to me a little bit about the sweet spot of making something like this a success.
You know, one thing that's beautiful about Ottawa Hills is just the involvement of everyone. Even people who don't have children in the school still have a vested interest in making sure what happens in the school is a great thing. You'll hear more about that from the mayor, but the school is sort of the epicenter of everything. We don't really have any businesses. There's no downtown. So I like to say the main hallway is Main Street, sort of. People spill out of their homes during graduation time to support the kids. Education is front and center. The design of this space was highly collaborative, involved all kinds of stakeholders, and it was a sort of an interactive process with the architecture firm that we chose, which was the Collaborative. Yeah. And one of the lead architects there was a village resident, so it had everything to do. But initially we talked about renovating our library, and he said, well, if you want to put learning in the center of your building, put learning in the center of your building. And this was an underutilized courtyard. And so he said, why don't you put a roof over the courtyard and you could have all kinds of space. And so within this kind of big room here, we have all these collaboration rooms. Yeah. So we have an immersion room, 360 immersion room, a testing center, a cafe that's run by students, a career and college counseling corner. So it's pretty amazing.
I'll tell you, as you walk through and see the names on these individual rooms, one of the things I think that really speaks to me is that there's a diverse group of people that have given back, right? Not just by ethnicity or income or geography, but there's an age separation too. It is, to your point, a community is given back because it means so much. That is the upside. The downside is you're a resident also in this community, right? And in full candor, you and I are friends, and I'm lucky to be able to say that. You are immersed in the community, and you now are the mayor of education in the high school. How do you disconnect? That you have to leave at some point, right?
You're walking through the grocery store, or you're trying to go for a walk with the dog, and inevitably you're going to encounter a parent who's not happy about their kid's math grade.
Or they are happy about it. They want to talk about it either way.
That's
well, truthfully, community is something I always wanted. There's 4,800 people that live in Ottawa Hills, 1,800 homes. walking through the neighborhood, I see my students all the time and their families. I actually like those connections. I need a break every once in a while, but I mostly like those connections. It's what I want. I want to feel like I'm part of something bigger than myself. So,
tell us a little bit about the data, just some facts about the school. How many students go here? What's the graduation rate? What are people? What's the college prep, like that? Those kinds of things.
We're a 712 building, about 500 students. 100% usually graduate. 100% have plans. Most of the time, it's the vast majority of students go on to a 4-year university or college. It's pretty incredible. I mean, our goal is to try to help students decide about the next step after high school and what that looks like, and give them a lot of choices. For some, it's a selective university that they're aiming to, and there's lots of support for that. For others, our philosophy is finding the right fit. They may get into a selective university, but unless they've done their homework, it might not be the place for them. So we really encourage from about 7th grade on, sort of thinking about the future, that career and college trajectory that they have. So we're very fortunate, 100% graduation rate.
What's something that people wouldn't know about Ottawa Hills, right? I mean, I think, I don't live in Ottawa Hills. My brother and his kids are here, and they absolutely love it. But I think there's certainly some strong perceptions about the Ottawa Hills community and Ottawa Hills schools, but those are largely uninformed, right?
Yeah.
So what's something that you've come to know about this school community that you want other people to know?
Yeah, well, it's one of the most diverse neighborhoods in Northwest Ohio. I think the university, the hospital systems, the businesses in Toledo recruit people from all over the world, and a lot of what people have in common in the neighborhood is they want the very best education for the children and their children. So it's a very diverse neighborhood, and I love that aspect of it. And I think another thing is we've avoided some of the divisiveness that exists in the rest of the country. People have to live next door to people in a very small community. So like if you've got a complaint about something, it's more of a kind of a dialogue or a discourse in the best possible way, as opposed to kind of creating wedges in the community, and I like that aspect of it.
And if you have any complaints, we'll make sure to put Vince's cell phone number up on the website. Talk to me a little bit about how you got to here. This was always when you were in school, you knew you wanted to be an educator, you knew you wanted to be in administration. What brought you to this as a path or a vocation?
My parents were great. They supported education, obviously. I had some pretty remarkable teachers all the way through.
Where's home originally?
I grew up in Plymouth Canton, Michigan.
Okay.
Yeah, and my wife Noreen is the French teacher here.
Yes.
She brought us to Ohio and to Ottawa Hills 32 years ago.
How about that?
Yeah, and I was actually commuting up to where I went to high school.
Okay.
Working with my very favorite teachers that I always had.
Yeah.
And but that's a 64-mile one-way commute.
Yeah. That's a lot.
And the principal retired here, and I thought, well, I could literally work across the street from my house. I had little kids at the time. I love Ottawa Hills, and it's a wonderful place to be an administrator. I'm passionate about school reform and education.
Yeah.
Some of that you can't just do in your classroom.
Right.
And I wanted to give back to the community. So although I get paid, I feel like I volunteer every day.
Yeah.
And
how did you and she meet?
I was an undergrad at Eastern Michigan University.
Yeah.
She went to U of M. She was in graduate classes.
Has she always looked down on you?
Yes, she has.
I know her.
Does she speak French?
As she should. Does she speak French?
When she's mad at you?
Yeah, well.
Or do you understand it?
I do understand
it. Okay. So that's not going to work.
She supports me and I support her. We like to think of it that way.
Yeah.
So that's where I met at school.
Yeah.
And she just finished her 32nd year at Ottawa Hills. So
that's amazing.
It's summertime. It's quiet here in the building today. But what does the summer look like for a principal?
There's a lot of stuff we push to the summer to get done. Lots of meetings, lots of paperwork, lots of training, lots of planning for the next school year. It's busy and in a good way. But again, there's not evening commitments. During the school year, we had 20 varsity sports, an amazing theater program, amazing vocal and instrumental program. So there's lots of things happening all the time at Ottawa Hills. And it's sort of like a recreation center. Again, we're not a place that has a downtown or a workout facility. The school is a community hub, inside and out.
What are some of those innovations you talked about, being innovative when it comes to being an educator or an administrator? What are some things that you've done here that you're proud of?
Oh, that's a great question. I think mostly it's about the attentiveness that the educators have to individual students. So no matter what your ability, we do a lot of meeting, looking at data, trying to kind of target students across all ability levels to make sure that they're reaching their full potential. And so it's called MTSS, Multi-Tiered System of Support in Schools. So it's a highly collaborative process with teachers. You know, the hard part about being the principal here too is we're so collaborative, and people want to be engaged at every level. Students need to be engaged, teachers need to be engaged, parents need to be engaged. So it's sort of managing all of that conversation.
32 years, like most things, there's a lot of change and a lot of things that are the same. Walk me through some of the things that have changed over your 32-year period.
Technology is like, I mean, it's I think almost to the point where we're like rethinking some of the technology.
Certainly.
Kids are saturated with cell phones and laptops, and we were one of the first to be kind of a one-to-one school, laptop for every kid. But now we're finding kids need a break from that. They want a break from that. Our art classes were at the forefront of technology originally, first to have laptops, and now kids, they're sort of getting away from that. They want some tactile experience and turn off that stuff.
Who leads that? Do the students just say, do you find that they're just not as receptive to learning when they're on the computers all day or doing the technology stuff, and they want to go? I mean, how is that determined that you need to go a different direction?
Also, are you able to tell that it was an educated question from someone who calls it technology stuff?
Technology stuff? That's a technical term.
Yeah, that's why I wasn't able to follow.
That's why you don't work here.
I think students have some awareness of that. Certainly their parents do and educators do, the attentiveness they have. But it happens through the scheduling process. They'll elect to have that, so I don't know if they're as conscious about it, but they are taking breaks from that. Our cell phone policy changed mid-year this year. The governor put some rules in place. Kids have to have it off and away pretty much all day long, and I think kids actually really liked it. We've seen that they connected.
Bet teachers like it.
Teachers really like it. And so, you're seeing that more authentic connection. They need that.
Yeah.
We're talking with Ben McMurray, the principal here at Ottawa Hills. Talk to me about kids. So we've talked about learning, but I think you see you've got a window into the future of our community. There's been a lot of conversation this summer about kids and decisions and parenting and all of this, and certainly you're in a unique space in a community like this, but are you terrified about the future?
I'm not. This is my 34th year in education. I think if I go back to early on, there was sort of a doom and gloom mentality among many people.
Of course.
And we've gotten through that. The same kinds of conversations are happening now, but kids are pretty resilient, they're innovative, they're creative. You just kind of need to give them the space. They're acquiring skills and knowledge that we didn't have. They're exposed to things. They have their pulse on things. I feel very good about it. Our graduates get jobs, and they do some very interesting things. The job market looks very different. I wish more of them would come back to Toledo.
Yes.
I think you guys are doing a good job of highlighting what is happening here and what an amazing place it is to raise families and to have.
We've had, as you can imagine, probably a handful, if not more, conversations about AI being the apocalypse, or the new apocalypse being upon us, right? And I think I mentioned the fact that when still photography was introduced from a technology standpoint, that quite literally introduced the Impressionist movement, right?
Yeah.
So, like most things, the world operates in a very general broad brush, like a thermostat, right? When something else happens, there's a kick on or the inverse reaction to things. I'd be curious too, and I'm with you 100%. I don't think the apocalypse is upon us, as much as I don't believe that there's such a thing as the greatest generation, right? I think that is a unfairly and absurd way of referencing anything. But in the 32 years, you've got to have a million things that are your favorite memories or success stories or help you get out of bed, because I know you find this work rewarding, but it's still work, right?
Yeah.
And you're a big music fan, and I know your lovely bride, so time with her is wonderful. I find it wonderful as well. But it doesn't have to be kid or parent specific, but is there a single one that you don't mind sharing of something that when you look back on your career and say, that's exactly the kind of thing that kept me going for 3 decades?
Yeah, there are many.
I bet.
Most recently, Pete Cadens, who's an Ottawa Hills graduate, challenged us to say, you got 2 amazing high schools, Ottawa Hills and Scott High School. Why aren't you collaborating? Why aren't you working together? And it was a great question. And I think Pete has stimulated a lot of really important conversations in the Toledo area. So we have a partnership with Scott High School. Kevin's been a part of that, some of the work that we've done together. But essentially, there are 15 or 20 kids from both schools that get together once a month. And we've done everything from just breaking bread together to traveling to Chicago to see Pete in his house. And it kind of exposed the group to these conversations. So when I see the conversation, the dialogue that happens between them, I'm very hopeful. When I see other people watch our group of students together and get curious, how are you guys, you're 2 high schools, why are you in Chicago together? How is this happening? That gives me a lot of hope about bridges being built and kind of humanity.
It's Mayor Monday here on the 419, talking with Ben McMurray. Talk to me about, at the very beginning you had mentioned, that, Ottawa Hills is unique. There's not a major industry presence here. Main Street, Ottawa Hills is the main hallway. Talk to me about the relationship between the schools and Mayor Thompson and his office.
Yeah, well, we are very fortunate. Marc is he was a very hands-on village manager, very hands-on mayor, lives obviously in the community. The school's really important to him. It's an asset to the community. It's why people live here. But we have so many other things that the neighborhood offers raising a family. We have green space. I think the sledding hill is one of the most popular things that our kids experience.
Same here, my kids too.
It's a safe community. The police force is amazing. They keep an eye on everybody in a very gentle way. Again, it's a walkable neighborhood. It's close to everything you need. The Metro Park is right there. Wildwood. Shopping. It's a special place. Tree-lined streets, walkable neighborhood. Kids can ride their bikes. My relatives who come to visit, they still can't get over it. Like, they don't realize a place like this exists in the United States right now. And people do know each other. That's the best thing. Marc has always been incredibly responsive. There's lots of partnerships that have to happen. I'll let him talk about some of those more recent partnerships, but some of our tennis courts are owned by the village, not by the school. Our baseball fields, all of those things happen. So, we have a great partnership.
Incredible. Ben, thank you so much. Thank you for welcoming us into Ottawa Hills High School, and thank you for joining us on the program. We'll take a break. We'll be right back to wrap up this Mayor Monday edition of the 419.
You laughed with us. You learned with us.
Hi, neighbor.
We made sure your childhood was special. Memories that could only be provided by PBS. For generations, we've given you programs that made a difference. Programs that entertained, informed, and inspired. And today is no different. This is WGTE Public Media in Toledo. It's where you belong.
Take WGTE with you, wherever, whenever, with the newly redesigned WGTE app. Watch our locally produced TV programming and your favorite PBS shows. Listen to FM 91 Live, stream our podcasts, and stay in touch with NPR News. Plus, get access to PBS Kids, great entertainment when you're on the go. All on demand in the palm of your hand. Download the WGTE app on the Apple App Store or Google Play today.
Welcome back in as we wrap up a Mayor Monday edition of the 419, powered by WGTE. Awesome conversation with Mayor Thompson and Ben McMurray. We're here at Ottawa Hills in this beautiful foundry space. I love what this space certainly represents, and Ben McMurray saying that what's unique about the Village Ottawa Hills is that Main Street, right downtown Ottawa Hills, is really the main hallway here at the high school.
It's one of the only times I've ever listened to Ben talk, and
it was barely listening today.
If you missed any part of the show, you can catch it 7 a.m. on YouTube, 3 p.m. on FM 91, or 6 p.m. on WGTE Connects Channel 30.4, of course, online 24/7, 365 at WGTE.org/the419. It's the 419, powered by WGTE, presented by Wheatro Wealth Management.
The 419, powered by WGTE, is made possible in part by supporters like you.